Welcome to Evangelism On Fire podcast. My name is Mark Thomas, an ordained pastor, a teacher of the best-selling book of all time, your host, and most importantly, your evangelism coach. Every episode, I bring you an inspiring message to help you live the most exciting life God has created you to live by actively sharing your faith in Jesus with others. I believe in the power of the gospel and the potential of all Christians to live out the mission of the Great Commission. I believe the best way for Christians to grow is to go. It's time for a revolution in every Christian's life around the world so that every person everywhere around the world can hear the gospel of Jesus Christ from a friend or family member through one-on-one evangelism. I'm so thankful for our time together today. I absolutely love spending time with you, Evangelism on Fire Nation. I believe this podcast will truly inspire you, and I believe it will inspire so many people that you know. And if you're inspired and feeling moved to share this, then please message some friends, post this on social media, and let people know about this episode so we can get this message out there more. I appreciate you and everyone listening right now. And a quick reminder, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, to rate it, to review it, spread the word on social media, and spread the message of Evangelism on Fire forward. Hey, exciting update for you, Evangelism on Fire Nation. I have created a brand new, vibrant, and dynamic online community. It's a space just for you. I want you to join today. You can join one of two ways. You can go to today's show notes and look for evangelismonfirecommunity.com. Just click on that link to join today. Or you can search evangelismonfirecommunity.com. One more time, evangelismonfirecommunity.com. You can search for that, find it, and join today before you listen to today's pod episode. I look forward to seeing you in our amazing community.
The youth today represent the future of our country. Many of them are putting their hope in everything other than God. They are being deceived. Grandparents aren't taking their grandkids to church like they did in the past. The church has been dwindling, which means the younger generation is not hearing about God and His Word nearly as much as they used to. That's why it is so important for us to get in front of them and make sure that worldly desire is not leading them astray. We want to let them know that there is hope for them through a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. In order to do this and to make an impact, we need your help. We need you to join us on this mission of being an inspiration for the younger generation. To do this, become a partner at Evangelism On Fire Ministry. Being a partner means making a commitment to give whatever you can to help us on our mission. We can't do this without you. We can't do this without the support of God's kingdom. Let's reach the world with the most important message that exists, the gospel message. Join us for the plans we have for ministry by becoming an Evangelism On Fire Ministry partner by going to today's show notes and clicking on the giving link. To become a monthly partner by setting up a monthly donation, or go to our website, evangelismonfire.com, click on the donate button to give a monthly recurring donation or a one-time gift. Thank you for joining us to give hope to the world.
Welcome, Evangelism on Fire Nation, to today's pod episode. We're in a series called God Stories, where we have special guests come on and they share their God stories, their testimonies of what God has done in their life. And today we have a special guest. We have the great Rob Ukrop in the studios today with us. Rob, how are you doing, my brother?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I want to thank you so much for making the time to do this pod episode, to share your God story. I remember it was last April, I was at a Richmond Kickers game, and thank you for the awesome seats, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Glad you liked them.
I love them. And you know what? I remember meeting you at a meeting once before, and then at that Richmond Kickers game was the first time that I ever had an opportunity opportunity to speak with you. And when we were speaking with one another, the conversation led to how the Lord has been so good in your life. And again, that was last April. And currently, this is September, but I've been thinking about your amazing God story ever since then. And I'm like, I'm going to reach out to Rob and I'm going to ask him if he will be on our podcast so our audience could hear some of the ways that God has, worked in your life. So thanks again. You're a busy man, but you made time to come here today to do this. And man, I appreciate it more than what you think.
I know. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on here. This is always exciting to kind of share my story. Hopefully it has some positive impact on other people. To me, it's just my story. I think about all the great blessings I've had from my grandparents, my mom and dad, just incredible Christians that have just been great leaders for me, and just watching and observing. You learn so much from watching people. I know people these days especially are quick to jump on, what are your politics and what faith do you belong to and what do you believe and where church do you go to? But to me, it's just being a human being, right? It comes down to treat others as you like to be treated, kind of the core tenet to, I think, life. I always remind myself that I have an opportunity. I lose my cool. I'm like everybody else. I have my moments of weakness and make the wrong decision, but people are always watching, and do the best you can to treat others as you'd like to be treated.
Yeah. And I try to live that way as well. And so that's very powerful. Imagine if everyone in the world lived their life that way, our world would be a totally different place, right?
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. It seems like people get hung up on the wrong things these days. I brought my Bible this morning with me, and the first gift my wife and kids presented to me back before we got married, and just hold so many good treasure. Not just the word that you read in there and the stories about God and all these people that came before us, but even then when Jesus came in the New Testament, just the powerful things and how he treated people. Kind of, I always tell people the Jesus motto is go to people. Don't expect them to always come to you. Ooh. So you never know what impact you can have. Sometimes is it out of your way? Is it maybe a pain in your butt or you don't want to do it? But sometimes you get there and you're like, man, you can just feel him working in your life. You're like, this is the place that I need to be right now. Hopefully these people that I'm around understand my care and genuine love for them. And how do we make our community a little bit stronger place?
Yeah. I love what you just said. Jesus went to people. He didn't expect them to come to him. That is so powerful. That is so powerful. So you were born April 5th, 1970 in Richmond, Virginia. So you're a native to the RVA area who is well known. For those listening, because this is a global podcast who aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I mean, I'm just kind of the goofy kid. I'm hyper competitive. I love sports. My favorite sport's basketball. My second favorite's golf. Soccer was my third favorite, but it's the one thing that when I played it came super naturally to me. And I just had incredible, great blessings and opportunities from playing in high school down to college at Davidson College. And I had a 12-year professional career. I was just thankful to be around so many different people. I think sometimes people are so sheltered in their early life that they don't know how to understand and see a different point of view. So, being in sports is great. Meritocracy kind of reigns supreme. Best players play. And sometimes I got to be part of the best. I was part of the best group. And other times I was a bench warmer. But one of the things that I always learned is that everybody has a role on the sports team. And I think that's a good way to look at life as well. Certain days you're going to have to step up and take a leadership role, whether it's in your church, whether it's in your family, wherever it is. But then other times you're gonna be the supplementing person that just sits there on the sideline and offers encouragement. I think encouragement is a piece that is lost these days.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about, I want to be supported, but they're worried about themselves and what do I get out of this instead of, how can I make this experience for everybody more positive? We were at church yesterday at Hope Church, and David Dwight gave a great message, and he was talking about God and Moses, and just talking about God said, I am. I mean, that's, he's active. He's in your life. He's by your side all the time. That's the beauty of this thing.
Yeah. Man, I love that answer. You're getting me fired up, Rob. You're getting me fired up. Hey, so before I jump into the next question, we were talking before the pod episode began. Tell us a little bit about you. You've got two Bibles with you. You showed me briefly what those two Bibles represent to you. Tell our audience. I know they can't see. This is an audio podcast, but share a little bit more about the two Bibles that you brought in with you.
Yeah. So the little one is just it's the New Testament. It's got my name embroidered on the outer. I guess I'm not sure what the right word is, but got my name on the outside of it. It was from mom and dad, gave it to me the day I was baptized on February 4th, 1979 at Second Baptist Church by Dr. Ray Spence. So that was I can remember the story I would tell about Second Baptist as a kid. You're always in church, and I'm not sure, every church is different now, but back when I was a kid, it would be an hour long, and typically around 11:25, started at 11:25, the pastor would get up to give his sermon, and that would go about 30 minutes till about 11:55. So I started to figure out if I time it right, 16 minutes in, I needed to go to the bathroom just because I couldn't sit still. I'm an active kid, active for 8-year-old. I'm fired up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, Dad, I got to go to the bathroom. And he's like, no, you don't. I'm like, Dad, I really have to go. He's like, no, you don't. I said, Dad, please let me go to the bathroom. He said, okay, we'll go to the bathroom. So I get up and my dad starts following me down the aisle. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, every Sunday after church, we'd go down to my grandparents' farm down in Verina. And we had dinner with all of our cousins and everybody after church. We'd break bread together, and then we could swim down at the lake, and there's all kinds of fun recreational things to do with the cousins. And Dad's like, if you go to the bathroom and nothing comes out, then you're grounded the rest of the day. I said, what do you mean? He's like, you're not going to go in the room. So this is my first encounter with prayer, right? So I get in there and stand at the urinal. I'm like, dear God, please help me pee today. It sounds so reckless. And I'm like, but I need help. I need you to do it in nothing. I'm like, please, God, in nothing. And my dad's like, I told you didn't have to go, of course. So we walked back in. And so the whole day, I got to eat in the room at the house, and I never got to go out and play. And it was a good reminder that, when you're in church and, manage yourself and listen to the message, and it could be a positive message. But, about a year later, I think it was, I was baptized. I came to Christ. And, it's funny. I think as a kid, I probably didn't know the full extent of it as a 9-year-old.
Right.
But, it started with, why are people taking communion? And that was kind of the conversation that my mom and dad had. And we always had that, why, and this is why you do it. So that's when I came to Christ officially, 1979, a long, long time ago. And then this other Bible, my wife and I, we were dating in 2009, and I'd asked for a new John Maxwell Leadership Bible. And this is what she got me. And she wrote it from her and our kids, Peyton and Presley. It's been an incredible blessing for me. And it's fun. I mean, I've got notes in here that my daughter wrote me, and encouragement from my mom and from my dad. And every Sunday I have it in, and, I go to the scripture that we're reading, and I put in the date of the message, and I put, the initials of whoever's the preacher. So I've got all these different preachers because we've been at some different churches through the years, but it's just a good reminder. I mean, if I look back at my grandparents' Bibles and beyond, that the Bible is a great place, not only for the word, but also to keep your family tree together.
Yes.
Now everybody's on their phones and does things a lot differently. But, my Bible, it just brings back these memories and drawings my daughter wrote. And, sometimes in church, she couldn't sit still as a 6-year-old, and she's drawing pictures inside my Bible. And then there's special moments, like things that the pastor said that just, lifted me up and lifted my wife up. And those are in there too. So I think the Bible, everybody talks about the word, but, it also represents these great experiences with your family, worshiping on a Sunday morning.
Absolutely. And one thing I love about your Maxwell Leadership Bible, hey, you got some miles on that thing, my brother.
Yeah.
You got that thing, you got a rubber band around it.
Rubber band, yeah.
Because it's falling apart because you got the miles on there, brother.
So for Christmas, this past Christmas, my wife and my daughter, they want to get it repaired. So, but it's got charm. I mean,
I love it.
Like I bought a new Maxwell Bible a couple years ago, and I just can't activate it. Like it just sits there in my closet, and I'm like, I love it. It's clean looking.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the history, and that's what the Bible. It's about history, and the reality is, I think if there was more God in the world today, and more people's lives, I think we'd be a lot more a stronger nation for sure.
Yeah.
And probably a stronger world too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you were speaking about your love of sports, and you said that soccer is your third favorite sport. So I would love for you to share with our audience your journey as a soccer player leading up to you being the chairman and CEO of the Richmond Kickers.
Gosh. Well, my soccer journey started, I ended up down at Davidson College back in 1988. I was a freshman on the team. I was just trying to play college anywhere. I just wanted to play. My dad played 2 sports in college, he played basketball and golf at University of Richmond. And my dad loved sports, and I didn't beat my dad in basketball till I was 18 years old. So it took a while.
Yeah.
So he always taught us to be competitive. The joke at the household is now he's trying to deprogram me, which is hard to do. We have some great competitive golf matches with my younger brother, Jeff. Jeff's been winning lately. My dad, he's like a 4 handicap at 78 years old. So we have some competitive matches. But when I finished at Davidson, we had an incredible career with great teammates. I had a 5th year that went really, really well. And I thought I'd come back and work for my family, my mom and my dad and my uncle in the grocery business. We were in the retail grocery business coaches for many, many years. And I thought that's what my path looked like. And, I had a great year and I got invited into the U23 national team. So I went and trained with them, with the team that a bunch of the players ended up playing in the World Cup in 1994. So it was a really humbling experience. I got this opportunity. And from there, I translated into a indoor-outdoor soccer career. And then I ended up playing outdoor for the last part of my career. I ended up in Richmond. I had, I guess, the biggest club I played for was Major League Soccer in 1996 with New England Revolution. I was there for 6 months. I got released before contracts were guaranteed in July. And I came back to Richmond thinking I wanted to get back to MLS. And it was just weird how, I got here and I had a few offers to go back, but I just felt like I needed to be in Richmond. I could make a better impact in the community. And, I've always loved Richmond. The only time I didn't love Richmond was when I left Richmond to go to college. I was like, I'm never coming back. Everybody says that, but you have 4 seasons here. You've got DC's 2 hours away, the beach, the mountains. And, most importantly, the one thing I learned from living around the world and traveling in different places was Richmond people are kind. We can disagree, but if you walk down the street and you look at somebody and smile and you're like, hey, good morning. How you doing today? And it's reciprocated well. Yeah. I lived in Boston for a little while with the Revolution and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, they looked at me. I learned some new 4-letter words. I was like, I was just saying hello. Nothing more than that. Yeah. So, we're really blessed in Richmond. It's a great community. I think one of the nice parts you're starting to see, and you see it at the Richmond Kickers games and the Richmond Ivy games. So when I was playing, it really was white suburbia. It wasn't reflective of who Richmond was, but that's most of the people like soccer then. But, fast forward to 25, 30 years later, here we are. And if you come out to a Kickers game, it looks like Richmond. It's awesome. Yeah. 2020 was difficult with COVID. We were actually, we ran the season anyway. We were limited to 800 fans. And one of the cool things is everybody in social justice times, everybody's, you need a statement. And my instincts is always, you don't need to make a statement. Actions speak louder than words. So we made a statement because the core of the group wanted to make a statement. So we did it. And of course it was, your statement's not good enough. And, it's too strong. So you kind of get into that. But what we did, we painted on the wall. There's a local artist that used to play for our U23 team many years ago. And he came in and painted into this RV is United, a white hand and a black hand holding hands in the RVA. And it's on the press box facing the field. And, for us, that's kind of emblematic of who Richmond is. It's just a place where we like each other. We care about each other. We want to make sure that we're successful together. It's not, the West End versus South Side, like the old bumper stickers used to say. I don't know if you remember those days.
Yeah.
But, But, Richmond is a big community. It's, I don't know what the population is in the city. I think it's maybe 650,000, maybe is the number, 700.
Yeah,
but,
right around there.
If you look at this region, like there's so many wonderful things happening. I sometimes think it's too competitive instead of like, hey, let's see how we can work together better, right? If this is thriving here, why do we need to do this here? Let's support, let's put those resources and really bring into people together. And cool, I think one of the questions you're going to ask me is about City Stadium, and City Stadium is just this incredible location for us. We had this great partnership with the city, a 40-year lease. And, people always ask me, what happened with the stadium? When did that come into being? And that was in 1929. So, it's almost 100 years old. And everybody says, so what's the greatest thing that's ever happened there? And, I always think about winning soccer games there, but, the amount of activity, we do 175 events a year at City Stadium.
175 events.
Right. Some from things, marathon training, 10K training, hitting cancer below the belt does a 5K. We do Carytown farmers markets. We play high school games. We do happy hours. We just do different things that bring people into the city. And hopefully it drives some traffic into Carytown. And there's just so many great stories that have happened there. They've done race car driving. They played baseball there. They played college football. They played World Cup qualifiers for the men's national team. The 1999ers with Mia Hamm and Julie Foudy, they played here multiple times. So there's all these great things. And then my dad tells me about 2 years ago, he says, one of my best memories was in 1956, Billy Graham was doing his revivals. And he goes, I was sitting in the East Stands and Billy Graham was bringing people to the Lord right there on the field, 17,000 people a day. Wow. Just coming out. So, you think about sporting venues, people just think about sports, but there's such an important part. We're excited about the new Diamond coming in, but I'm sad. We're going to lose the Coliseum. We're going to lose the Diamond. You're going to have the new CarMax Park, which is great. But sports venues are a really great way to bring people together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking about that, your mission is to strengthen community connections by curating a joyful, authentic soccer experience in Richmond, Virginia. So that's part of the mission that you're explaining about now, right. So how do you think soccer will unite the city closer together with all these different events that you're mentioning as well?
I think you're already starting to see it. When you come out to a game, the question I get, we had 5,000 people the other night. We started 2 18-year-olds, an 18-year-old that's on an academy contract out of Maggie Walker, James Ned, and he got another shutout, his third straight start. A guy named Griffin Garnett who grew up in the city, walking over with his mom and dad to Kickers games. And these guys guys are 18 years old, and we're starting to see, some people are coming to watch these young guys like, man, that guy, I'm almost his age. These 15 and 16-year-old kids are a game. Like, maybe that could be me one day, right? So you have the aspirational part, but then at the same time, we have folks that live in the neighborhood that come out that, I think as Tom Fritz, our director of food and beverage, says, we probably have the best bar in town. We've got so many different craft beers on tap, and it's just a chance for you to experience Richmond in a different way. You have a chance to cheer for your teams, and even with a big crowd, the way that the stadium was set up, and this is what I really absolutely love about City Stadium, is when you walk into the press box side, as you walk in, like you walk into the bowl, and then you go down and you see the field below you. So if you watch a game or you come out or you're in an event, you're on top of this concourse and you can kind of overlook things.
Yeah.
And I think it just, instead of coming in these new beautiful stadiums at other places where you walk in, then you got to go up an elevator or walk up a bunch of steps and then look down, like you walk in and it's just right there. And, to me, the most beautiful thing we could ever do is I'd love to do a sunrise Easter morning out there. I think it will be amazing. Obviously, you're weather dependent, but, it's just fun to watch the sun come up over there and, just think about all the wonderful history there. And, hey, anytime you have Billy Graham bless something, it's pretty special.
Yeah. I recently learned about that. I saw a video of you and you were speaking about Billy Graham's crusades being there in I think 1956. And on that video, you said, hey, that was probably the coolest thing that has ever happened here. And I got excited. I'm thinking, man, that's a part of Richmond's history I did not know.
Right.
I knew that he came to Richmond, but I didn't know it was at City Stadium.
Right.
So,
well, you think about it, so my dad was sitting there and you think about, it's, the great thing about whether it's here, Thrive Church here or Hope Church or the other churches that are active in the community, like, it takes a while to bring people to the Lord.
Yeah.
And it's not, some people, it happens overnight because they're just desperately seeking something. And other people are, skeptical, and it takes a little bit of time. And, what is it that closes the deal for people? And, certainly being in a stadium with 16,000 people, there's energy, and that's always a positive thing. I think one of the things, maybe I'm jumping ahead, or maybe you're going to ask this question, but I think it was around 1995, 1996, my granddad, Joe Ukrop, was having some health issues, and we had him at Henrico Doctors Hospital, and the doctors came back and said, he's not going to make it. He's just based on what's happening, you should start to plan end of life. And, my grandmother, who was a strong lady of faith, and she's like, he's going to be fine. But, I believe the story is my dad and my uncle were preparing. So, they did the obituary and they did the interview to talk about my granddad's incredible life and how he impacted so many people, starting as with a grocery store, 700 square feet on Hull Street Road. And, one of the things we didn't want to have happen when we took him off all the machines was we didn't want him to die alone. So based on my soccer career, and this is kind of my blessing for soccer, is that time of year I was flexible. I could train during the day and I had my nights free. So I would go in and relieve whatever family member at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and I'd stay the night with my granddad till 6 a.m. And, so every night I'm like every competitive kid. I'm like, all right, come on, granddad, you got to get through this. Like, you got more years to live. And I can remember every night I'd sit there, I'd hold his hand, and, he was barely breathing. And like, granddad, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand.
Yeah.
And nothing happened the first night. And second night, I'm like, telling him about the stories. Like, granddad, you remember when we come down for work week in the summer, and I'd bring Philip Shear, and we come down there, and you wake us at 5:30, we'd eat at 6 a.m. And at 6:30, we're down there, cutting grass or putting sand on the greens or whatever it was down on the farm, and just living the life of a farmer with my granddad. And I was talking to him, and I'm like, granddad, everybody thinks you're done, that, your time, that the Lord's going to call you. But I mean, I don't know. Are you ready to go? Or you want to stay? And I'm like, just squeeze my hand. So, I put my hand in his hand and I feel this really faint squeeze. So, of course, I think I was 24, 25. I'm like, man, he's all right. He's good. So I'll call the nurse in, and they come in and say, yeah, it's probably just a muscle reflex, reflex. So I'm like, all right, granddad, nobody believes me. We're going to have to do this again. So he squeezes me faintly again. I'm like, I'm telling you, like, I know I don't know anything. I'm a college kid basically, but something's going on here.
Yeah.
So the next night I'm like, I'm armed. Like, I prayed over him. I've talked to him. I'm like, granddad, nobody believes me. Like, come on, you can do this. So I need you to blink your eye. So he faintly squeezed my hand. I'm like, granddad, the squeeze is not helping. I just need you to blink your eye, please. And so this night he blinks his eye, and I'm like, I get this chill. I'm like, wow. So I'm like, ladies, gentlemen, nurse, doctors, anybody, please come and watch this. And I told my mom, and my mom's great. She's an incredible caretaker, and, knows which buttons to push. And it was great. She's like, we need to feed him some more food, because they really, end of life, they weren't feeding him a ton of food. So they gave him a little bit more food. And sure enough, my granddad came back and he got 6, 7, 8 more years out of life. Just because it wasn't his time. The doctors did their best, and, I don't think they misread the situation, but my granddad, he was a fighter, and, when the Lord wants you, he's going to come and take you. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So that was just one of those things that restored my faith, because you go around and you're in college and you're around a bunch of people that don't always want to make good decisions. And, I like to think I made good decisions in college, but it just restored my faith that, there are always people that say, well, there's no higher power. And, this is just something that people, brings people together. So they take your money. I'm like, no, there's something there. And just sitting there with my granddad and watching how, the doctor said this is the end. And here he was fighting, and God's like, put his hand on him and lifted him back up. And was like, we're good. We're good.
We're good.
So we had a bunch of great years after that with my granddad.
Yeah.
So,
and you shared this story with me at the Richmond Kickers game. And that's when I realized, I'm like, this man, Rob Ukrop, he is a man of faith. And it really, one of my prayers is I pray every single day that God will bring someone in my life that would increase my faith in Jesus. And that conversation, God really used you to increase my faith.
Oh, good.
I
don't know. You probably simplified it too much. You do a lot of great things that make your faith stronger. But I guess the way to close the story up for you, though, so fast forward a bunch of years later. So one of the things that we used to do in the Sunday afternoons down at the farm is a lot of times my granddad would be in his Sunday best, and he'd put some bird seed in his hand, and we have a man-made lake that he created many years ago, and he'd put his hand in some bird seed, and he'd just go, "Red bird." And this bird would literally fly across the lake, land on his hand, and eat out of his hand.
Yeah.
So we call it Redbird Farm now, but it was really cool. So when my granddad, a bunch of years later, when he did pass away, my last time with him, my sister Nancy Jo, my dad, and I were all in the room with him, and he had some oxygen on his face, and I was telling a story about the redbird, how much I loved how he was so one with nature, and just felt like he was, he just had this great understanding of the world and impacting others. And we're sitting there, and I'm like, I just loved it when you say Redbird, and my granddad, he barely hear me. He's like, Redbird, to the best of his ability. And that's how my granddad, and later that morning, and maybe 4 or 5 a.m., my mom called and said he had passed. And it was this really powerful thing, is like, you never know how much people in your family, impact you.
Yeah.
Sometimes not even talking about it, but just watching. I remember when I'd sleep down there with my granddad and at the farm, and my grandmother, before he'd go to bed, he'd get on his knees and pray every night. My dad does the same thing. I do the same thing now. But one of the powerful things for me is, fast forward a couple of years later, around 1997 or 98, I guess maybe a little bit longer. But as I look back, I'd never really seen any redbirds in my house, my first house. And one day, my granddad had passed, and I'm out there and I'm looking around and driving home, having a really rough day, and I'm waiting to go in my garage, and I look up, and there's this redbird just sitting on my mailbox. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, that's my granddad saying it. And it's just like, he's there to protect. He's there to keep an eye out for you.
Yeah.
And so the people that bring you to the Lord, a lot of times are still there and still have this powerful impact on you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that story. So many people are going to be blessed by what you just shared, and their faith is going to be increased in God. So thank you so much for sharing about that. Now, you just shared earlier about when you came to faith in Jesus Christ. But what I want to know is, what was your life like before you made a decision to follow Jesus?
I was young when I came to Christ, but I grew up in a home where, we do Wednesday night suppers at Second Baptist, and I was, the rule I think was, you wanted to play sports, you had to be in the church choir or the school choir. So, I did both at one point, and then I dropped and did the school choir because I didn't tie up another night. But, ever since I've been a kid, it felt like we were surrounded by the Lord's hands. It just felt like at our house, we'd say our blessings, we'd say our prayers. It was an active part, how we spoke. All these things were important. So I don't feel like I was ever far away. But my mom and dad just modeled a great, wonderful Christian household. Now I've got one brother and 2 sisters. We're all believers now. We still are. How we manifest ourselves and how we behave is probably all a little bit different. You're like, you guys are related because different. We see things differently.
Right.
But I think that's kind of the beauty of the world as well. But we were never far from anything. At home. I think it was sad. Just last week I went to a funeral. There's a young lady named Anne Marie Axel. She was we grew up together at church at Second Baptist. Her mom and dad were close with my mom and dad, and Anne Marie was 2 months older than I was. She was born on February 5th, 1970, and passed away a couple weeks ago. She had cancer, but she was special needs. Not sure exactly what happened, but she was just this incredible, joyful person. And even when we were kids, we would go places and do things as families together. And she was such an inspiration to me and others. With her disability, she was so excited to see people. She could remember everybody's name, something that I have trouble with even today. But
Yeah.
She was working up to her death. She was working at Second Baptist as a greeter on Sunday mornings and greeting greeting everybody. How are your children? And knowing people by names. But you just forget that as a kid, I remember we did 2 musicals together, Moses and the Freedom Fanatics, and then The Singing Bishop. We did these musicals, and I remember singing. My dad's got video. It's embarrassing, right? But that's how it is. But my sister and my brother and Anne Marie and her brother and sister, it's like these family things that you do at these churches. And at the time, I think the song was Come Walk With Me. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm singing. You're just like singing as a kid, but you start looking back as you get older. You're like, man, this is, kind of just like he freed his people. He freed God's people and all these different things that you learn. But, I think the coolest part about the faith and my beliefs is that so many wonderful people come into my lives. Now, some don't stay. Some are just passing. But, Anne Marie was somebody that, every year we'd go carol at their house, and she and her mom would come to the door, and she'd be so excited to see us, and she'd sing with us, and just a joyful hug. We'll miss that this December. But you think about the people that you interact with at these churches, and I'll be the first to tell you, you can go to church and there's some people that you don't want to be around. You're like, man, they're like too churchy for me, or they don't make you feel welcome. And I think one of the sad parts is, the church now, if you come into Hope Church or you go into, most churches now, you don't have to wear a tie.
Right.
I remember back with, I grew up at First Baptist. We went from Second Baptist to First Baptist with Dr. Fleming. And, I couldn't always keep up with Dr. Fleming because maybe he was too strong for me as a preacher. But he felt like his voice was the voice of God. And I always loved Dr. Fleming would get there on the baby dedication. He was a master. He would hold that baby for the crowd, and never would the baby cry. And he was just so powerful. And it just showed that, the future of Christianity is these young people, these babies and these kids. And I think people are getting away from that a little bit. But now I'm skipping around. I told you my brain's scattered, but I get this from my dad, I think. But at First Baptist, I remember we used to sit in the back row up in the balcony, just because sometimes we come in late. Sometimes we sneak some donuts or some candy, probably, now it's not as taboo, but back then you're like, whoa, you can't bring that into church. Yeah. But I remember I was sitting up there, and it was cool because at the time, I believe Governor Allen and his wife, Susan Allen, and their kids, they used to sit up there as well when he was the governor. So they used to sit in the row next to us. And I can remember sitting there with my mom and dad, and I'm watching in the balcony up in First Baptist. If you've been there, there's kind of a shelf on the balcony, so you can actually put a cup of coffee or donuts or whatever. And I remember one Sunday I'm sitting in there, and I watched this guy walk in, and he's clearly been living on the street. He's disheveled clothes, shaggy hair, beard, comes in with a cup of coffee and some donuts, some like white powdered donuts. And he goes in and he sits down, and I just caught my eye, and I watched him sit down, and the people next to him are like, scooching over real quick because they were uncomfortable. That's the reality, rightly or wrongly. And I sat down there and drinking this coffee and just sat there and listened to the whole sermon from Dr. Fleming. And then like, I wonder if he's going to come back. And the next week, same thing, he shows back up again, same way. And it was funny, like, I always hate when churches always say, hey, we're inclusive and we want to welcome people and bring people to the Lord. And then when people come in, they don't look like you, and they're like, well, I don't know if we want that guy. Yes. So, but this guy kept coming and consistently. And then over the course of about 6 months, one day I'm looking around, I'm like, where is he? And I see this guy walk in a suit and a tie and his hair combed and no beard. And I'm like, that's him. That's the power of how the Lord works. He was coming to a place where he was told was welcoming. And I'm sure somebody was incredibly kind to him, but the people that were sitting next to him weren't super welcoming. I'm watching it firsthand. And maybe I should have been the one to go down there. Hey, we're really glad you're here. But somebody made that impact on him and said, thanks for being here. Maybe it was somebody like Anne Marie who loved everybody. But as you watch these things unfold, you're like, man, this is like the power of the Lord. Like it just happens over time, and it works on people's hearts, and you can fight it as much as you want, but sometimes he just overwhelms you with love and joy. So.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and that is truly the power of God's love. I love that. Now I could tell that you really love Anne Marie. She had an impact on your life, man. When you're speaking about her, you're lighting up, brother.
Oh well, so this is fresh in my mind. I didn't get to see her in the last couple of weeks, but my mom and her friend group, they're all super tight with Anne Marie's mom, and I saw her brother Raleigh did a great job speaking about her and just like showcased what Christian love's all about, like being welcoming. Like she had some disabilities. Was it difficult? But I remember when I was a kid in my 20s, I'd be at the mall, Regency Mall, and walk around, and who would I run into? Anne Marie loved the mall, right? So there's these people that at the time that I realized the impact she probably had on me, probably. Probably not. But this is how life works. And, I think God is really good about revealing people that make a positive impact on you. And, heck, she impacted a bunch of people far more than she did for me. But as you watch this and, you go through these sad, difficult times in life, whether you have a loved one that's sick, just sitting there and just being kind and just listening and just remind yourself, if this person leaves, so what is it that I can do to pick up and kind of shine their Christian light a little bit for them?
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. So I've got this next question that I'm going to ask you. Now, this is going to be a deep question here. All right. But what's one thing about your testimony that you never, ever shared with anyone?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean,
I'm going to try to pull it out of you, brother.
I'm pretty open. Like, my wife's like, don't tell that story. I mean, I'm pretty much open. I mean, I just want people to understand that everybody's journey is a little bit different. You don't have to be perfect. Like, that's the beauty of Christianity and just kind of the faith. Everybody makes a mistake, right? You think about the different stories that you have. I think my favorite passage, or actually scripture, is Proverbs 22:1. A good name is better than great riches. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Like, be a kind person.
Yeah.
Treat people with kindness. Do my wife and I have disagreements over stuff? Yeah. Like, do I like to win out the argument? Of course. I'm a male. Competitive, right?
That's right.
But like, I have this incredible wife who puts up with me. Like, right? I mean, I watch my dad, my mom, and they've been married for, I'm 54, so it'll be 56 years. I was a honeymoon baby, 9 months and like 10 days, I think, is what happened. So I've got this great wife that helps keep me humble and tells me, hey, you're an idiot, which I need to hear a lot of times.
Yeah, I need to hear that too, brother.
Yeah, so that's the way that it works. But I just think sometimes the signs are there. I would tell people, the Lord is working in your heart. You don't see it. I think one of my frustrations these days with churches, and there's so many churches keep popping up, and I don't want to say there's too many churches, but sometimes, like, just because it's not working, be patient. Be patient and see what you can do to add to the experience at the church. I do feel like a lot of these churches now, I don't want to say church light. It's a little bit transactional.
Yes.
I'll tell this. I mean, I like Hope Church a lot. I usually get there at 8:12. Service starts at 8. I don't love the music at Hope Church. Maybe it makes me a terrible person, but it doesn't. I don't like the song. So I cut out the first two, but I hear the last one, right? My wife's like, why are we late? I'm like, because I don't like the song, right? So, these different things that you experience at different churches. And, like, I love when David Dwight or Pete Boels preaches. I mean, it just connects, right?
Yeah.
I can remember a long time ago, my first time I went to Hope Church, I was looking for a church when Dr. Flaming retired, and I went to Hope Church when they were meeting at Godwin, and I went and I didn't like it. I didn't like the message at the time. And that time, my heart wasn't ready for what he was delivering, right? Yeah. And I went somewhere else. So this is the cool part about it. I've got some great friends that are pastors. Hill City Church, John Wagler is a good friend of mine, and really cool to see what he's done. Rob Roden married my wife and I. He started Commonwealth Chapel RV now many, many years ago. Yeah. And just been a great resource when I need somebody to lean on. He's a guy I call. And then Dan Schultz is kind of the other person. He's a close friend, worship leader, phenomenal singing voice musician. If you're looking for somebody to come and perform or lead your team or give you some uplifting moments, Dan Schultz is the guy. He also does a bunch of installs now with churches with new video screens and trying to change the worship culture in a lot of these places. I've just got a great group of people that I lean on. Rob is a great one, Dan Schultz. And then, I guess, I don't know if you're going to ask this, maybe you will, but, probably my closest friend in faith was a kid that was here for high school with me, Keith Hayes. He lives in Nashville now, but he's just an incredible friend. We shared our faith together. I think the first day we were in CPR class together, he's new to Richmond, and I kept saying, hey man, I like your jacket. And he's like, thanks. That was our conversation. And it turned into this great friendship. Right now he's felt led by the Lord to go on this. He's backpacking down the coast of South America on his own.
I love it. On his own.
His wife dropped him off. His third child is in college. She couldn't go, some work commitments. So he went down for the first week, and he is backpacking in hostels all the way down the coast of South America.
I love him already because he's an adventure seeker.
He is crazy. Like, I love the man. He is great. He's an incredible human being. He's crazy. I've said that a couple of times, but I'm following him on Instagram. I think watching him travel and make new friends around the world. Yeah. But
that's awesome.
And I'm sure that he is bringing somebody to the Lord.
Ooh, come on.
Right? That's how he works.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes, absolutely. Hey, so I'm going to close out today's pod episode. And again, thank you so much for sharing your God story testimony. Look, you have the most powerful testimony, being brought up in a family who loves the Lord, who's trained trained up in the ways of the Lord. I have the complete opposite testimony. I'm a prodigal. I didn't get saved till I was 31 years old. And people hear my testimony and they're like, wow, that's a powerful testimony. That's a powerful God story. No, the most powerful God story testimony is being brought up in a Christian family, being trained up in the ways of the Lord. So thank you so much for sharing your life with us.
Oh, well, you're kind, but I would say, like, I think the most powerful stories is each person's, right?
Come on.
You know, I mean, everybody's
Yes.
like, oh, well, you have a better story. Like, my story is just my story. Like, everybody, you know, the cool part about how the Lord works is like, there's no straight line, right? There's no like, hey, you know, I hear about all these different people that find Christ on their deathbed, and which is the cool, you know, I think that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
You know, maybe you leave this incredibly terrible lifestyle till the last moments, but this is the beauty of the book, right? You know, this is the message. He's there for you. All you need to do is ask for him to come into your life, right?
Yes.
That's the power of it. But, you know, so many people are on these different things, and, you know, can you do things in the past that you're not proud of? Of course, everybody does, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, look forward. You know, that was the message I got yesterday. I think it was Exodus 3:7-15. He was just talking about, you know, when Moses asked God who you are, and he's like, I am.
Yeah.
And he's present. It's not about the past and not about the future. I am here side by side with you on this journey. You know, it reminds me of the old footsteps thing. You know, when, I don't know if you've seen those little note cards that people used to put in their wallets.
Absolutely.
About how, you know, hey, God, when times got tough, you know, you weren't next to me. He's like, those are the times that I lifted you up, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the beauty of the message in the Lord. And, you know, hopefully somebody will come to, you know, find the glory of God and Jesus working actively in their life. And hopefully it transforms other people. I certainly feel blessed, you know, in my work in progress. Yeah. I ask my wife every day. She reminds me of that. But, you know, I got this incredible God-fearing wife that, you know, we spent time with her sister yesterday and her niece and her mom and dad. And, you know, their pastor was at lunch, and I was like, what'd you preach on today? And he's like, having the right flag outside, right? You know, just talking about, you know, there's people every day having conversations about how God is working in their life. And, you know, I know when it works in your life, you have the opportunity to pass that on and share it with somebody else. So don't ever be afraid to tell your story is what I tell people.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Share your testimony to as many people as you possibly can. Hey, what brings you the most fulfillment in your life right now?
I mean, my wife probably doesn't like this, but just hang out with my wife. Like she likes to plan stuff. I just like to sit there with her. Whether we're sitting, we've got 3 Chinese Shar-Pei dogs. So sometimes we can't have them all in the same room. So we get split up a little bit, but, you know, just riding the car with her, having her, you know, I don't want to listen to this. I love listening to the message. I mean, I listen to all these Christian songs, and, you know, I don't know, my kids are like, can we listen to something other than Christian music? And I'm like, well, it's kind of, when I'm in my car, it's a chance to just fill my soul with music that I love. And was always a big Michael W. Smith fan. I think he brings things, you know, when I was a kid, when I listened to songs or sang songs, I never listened to words. I just sang them. I just, they were words.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you sing a Christian song, you're like, this is pretty powerful. There's actually, there's words in here that are meaningful. I don't know, maybe you're not going to ask this, but my favorite group is the Old Newsboys. I know they have a new lead singer. But,
I was just getting ready to ask you what your favorite song, your favorite Christian song is.
Gosh, favorite Christian song. I have a lot, but I love their album. It's called Houston, We Are a Go.
Yeah.
It's a live album, and I used to cut the grass to it when I walk the hill every morning. That's one of the albums that I play. And, you know, Peter gives his testimony on there, and it's just, you know, he talks about being a preacher's son, and, you know, everybody assumes because you're a preacher's son, you're going to be a follower of the Lord, right?
Right.
It's like I said, it's never a straight path.
Yeah.
But I love that album. Like when they sings Amazing Love, I think that, you know, my buddy Dan sang that at our wedding with my wife and I. So I think Amazing Love's one of my favorites of all time.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, and the other great song for me, it's not a Christian song, but my aunt's been sick. She's 79 years old, and we've been praying over her for God to either lift her up and bring her home or perform a huge miracle. And I was with my wife and my mom yesterday, and I was singing Rainbow Connection from the Muppets. I'm a big Kermit the Frog fan, and, you know, that was one of the songs that my aunt used to sing with me when I was a kid. She'd play the ukulele, and you know, why are there so many songs about rainbows and what's on the other side?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like, you know,
you sound good, man.
I'll do my Kermit voice. Hey, Kermit the Frog here. I'm searching for Miss Piggy, but why are there so many songs about rainbows and what's on the other side?
I love it.
But, you know, I sang that to my aunt a little bit yesterday. I don't know all the words. I've got a few concussions in my history, but but you know, there's so many songs that like you associate with different people and whatever the journey they're on. And, you know, just, it was nice to see a smile from my aunt yesterday. She's having some difficult health challenges. And, one of my favorite things, she's got one of her former pastors, a guy named Dan Bagby, comes in and visit her once a week or so. And it's unbelievable. Like these people that are called to the mission all the time, and they're dealing with people that with health challenges and terrible tragedies and terrible situations, and how compassionate and how they connect my aunt Dan does with her faith. It's I could never do it. But I admire those people for all that they do to make such a positive impact on our world and help people that are, do I have my challenges? Yeah. Do I have anything that's super stressful for me? Maybe not. But like these people are dealing with life and death, and, for God to just intervene and provide some comfort to their families. And, the fact that he's able to do it through people like Dan Bagby and other pastors, I think that's the most amazing thing.
Yeah. I tell you what, I thank God for godly men, godly pastors, godly women who can provide that comfort at that stage at people's lives,
Right.
It truly is a calling from God. All right. So this is my final question for you for the day. And again, thank you so much for making the time to be here with us. How can we strengthen our RVA metro area by using the soccer experience to reach the 650K? So the 650K are the 650,000 people in the Richmond metro area, the Richmond, Virginia metro area, who do not know Jesus, who do not go to church, who are not saved. So how do you feel like soccer or any type of sport can reach people with the gospel of Jesus Christ? You mentioned earlier that we're one generation away from Christianity being extinct. So how do you feel like soccer or any sport can help get the gospel message out to people who do not know Jesus?
Well, I always think, I said it earlier, the Jesus model, where I feel like Jesus was much more effective when he goes to you, and he meets you where you are. And I think a lot of times, all these churches, and I've seen it with nonprofits, we got to get people into our beautiful building. But, look at this building. This is an old building. From the outside, it doesn't look beautiful. From the inside, it's freaking amazing looking. Like, just look at the woodwork and the arch. And I mean, this is like, it just feels like God's working in here, right? But most importantly, the best place to catch people, talk about your faith, and, you don't even have to talk about it, but just show people kindness, is when you're in somewhere, whether it's a sporting event, maybe it's a concert, maybe it's a festival. But when you catch people when, if you drag them to church, and I say drag, maybe that's not the right word, but, people are like suspicious. But, the nice part is like Christian people are kind. Like you might, you can have disagreements about different parts of the Bible and what's real and what's not real. I mean, I think the Bible's real. It's simple as that to me, right? The word is the word. But people have this opportunity to talk to you and see what you're about. And I think, the beautiful part about Christianity is how you treat people and just how you interact with people. And, like there's plenty of people that I don't like and I dislike, but I do my best to talk to them and be friendly and smile. And, there's churches that I've used to worship at that I don't worship at for specific reasons. And, I had to find a better fit that would fulfill me, that would make me feel like I'm the person that can continue to give my love and support to other people. So I just think sports is a great way to bring people around and just simply, hey, you know what? And that person was really nice. I want to learn more about, what they do. Oh, well, that person worships at Hope Church. That person worships at Thrive Church. These are things. So maybe there's something there. We have a Red Army fan named Gabe Higgins. He's got a young life. He works out of VCU, and he's in the Red Army. And if you've ever been in the Red Army, you've seen the games. Like, I don't think everything they say in there is God-like. They're a little bit crazy and all right.
Right.
But, he's brings people to games, and he's trying to bring these young men and young women to Christ, and he brings them to sports because sports is an event. It's something that you can get around, and, God is everywhere. I mean, that's the beauty of it. I mean, I love it more than anything when, after these games, and when I was a kid, I was a little suspicious of it, but you're starting to see, like, you start reading about these guys' testimonies, CJ Stroud, every time he gets interviewed from the Houston Texans, and I don't like the Texans, but he's like, first of all, I got to thank my Lord and Savior.
Yes.
He's given me the strength to get out here and be a great teammate and lead my team. Right. So I think that's a really powerful message. I know these days with the media, that gets cut out a lot. They don't want that, right? Because it doesn't jive with the messaging about all the other things in life. But, I'll often tell people, if you have one thing that you need to figure out how God works in your life, because he is working in your life, even if you don't know it. Everything that happens that's good to you, you have a little bit of control, but, certainly there's this plan written for all of us. And you're just kind of going through it. And it's important for you to do the best you can to make other people feel comfortable come to Christ.
Rob Ukrop, thank you so much for an incredible God story interview. Yeah. And thank you so much for your generosity with your time. I appreciate you, my brother.
Thanks for having me. Have a great week.
You too.
Kickers game soon.
Yes, I see you at that Kickers game super soon.
Sounds good.
God bless you, my brother.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time with me today. It's been an amazing time, and thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it inspired you on your journey of sharing your faith in Jesus with others. Make sure to check out today's podcast show notes for a description of today's show along with other super important details. And also make sure to share this with a friend and subscribe over on Apple Podcasts as well. I really appreciate your feedback, Evangelism on Fire Nation, so share a review on Apple and let me know what part of this episode resonated with you the most. And hey, if no one has told you lately, God loves you, I love you, you matter, and you have divine purpose. Now it's time to go out there and share the gospel message with others. Make sure to join me for our next episode.